Hey babes, I'm Madeline.
And I'm Deja.
Welcome back to the Elegance Exchange. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about overcoming from failure. So, it's the new start to a semester. Mm-hmm. We're all a little,
Getting used to our classes, you're getting used to the way that your new schedule is laid out.
Tell me about it. Deja and I Deja's had quite the week. But
it's okay. We're overcoming from that.
Failure, yeah, exactly. So we are just going to kind of share some personal stories and really just give some tips on how to overcome this, because I know whenever a lot of failure is going on in our lives, we constantly tear ourselves down and just try to make ourselves feel awful about, failing.
Mm-hmm. And there's only so much negativity with failure that you can handle. Once you start failing something and it's that's the breaking point, and then everything else starts failing because you're not at the right mindset that you should be in the first place, then it creates a type of domino effect, and you get overwhelmed. If anything, it's just very overwhelming, and then you don't feel the best afterwards.
Right. So I was reading a book the other day, and we all know, if you listen to the podcast ever before, I love my self-help books. And so I was reading one of these books the other day, and it was talking about how so in your head, I want you to say 5 things about yourself right now. 5 things that you know about yourself. And then think of those things, alright? And how many of them are positive and how many of them are negative. And now I want you, and guys, do this with me, trust me, it's going to make sense here in a second. I want you to compliment yourself. I want you to compliment on 5 things that you really, really like about yourself. And how did that feel? I want you to reflect on that. How does that feel for you? Does it feel weird? Does it feel foreign? Or does it just feel normal?
Right.
How does it feel for you?
It just makes me feel better about myself, if anything.
Yeah.
You kind of it's kind of you have to be nice to yourself. People go through things all the time. They're only human. There's only so much you can do.
Right.
So you just need to be nice to yourself.
So this book, and I actually did post a quote from it on our Instagram, so if you want to go check that out. But this book was basically saying, that they did this exercise with a bunch of people, and if you felt really weird, praising yourself, giving yourself compliments, that is how most people's brain operate. Most people feel that it is so completely normal to tear themselves down versus building themselves up. So we are more conditioned to really just talk negatively about ourselves versus, giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt and being positive and just really, complimenting ourselves. And it really opens your eyes, because we're so conditioned to think that we cannot compliment ourselves without being, pick me or selfish or things like that.
Self-absorbed.
Yeah. But realistically, you're not. You just know your strengths. Just like you know your weaknesses, but that doesn't mean that you need to point it out to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then another book was talking about how, we are so conditioned as well to pretend that we're perfect at everything. I know for me personally, I hate going into a situation that I don't know what I'm exactly, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. So the idea of, what's something that terrifies me? The idea of, I don't know, what's something so out of my comfort zone? Maybe
Spanish.
Okay, you don't have to call me out like that.
In Spanish.
Well, we'll get there in a second, trust me. But the idea of going to a skate park or something, and going on a skateboard or something, that is terrifying for me, because I don't know how to be good at it, because I've never done it before. But this other book was saying how, we don't expect ourselves, if we break our bone or say we dislocate our shoulder, we don't expect ourselves to know how to fix that.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do that because we're not trained in it. That's not what we went to school for. At least that's not what I'm going to school for. So why do we expect ourselves with everything else in our life to, be perfect, and that we should be able to do it, immediately?
And just know everything at that moment.
Right. So be kind be kind to yourself.
And if you were to hear your friend, if I was to hear Madeline say all this negative stuff about her, it would make me feel sad. I'd be that's not all true. That's not true. You don't Like, you can't be perceiving yourself in that way. So just the thought of you tearing yourself down so much, like, you wouldn't
do that to your friends.
No,
you wouldn't tear them down.
No, and you shouldn't do it to yourself either. Like, if your friends were saying the same issues that you had, you would immediately be like, hey, like, it's okay, like, you know, you're still perfect. And that's the way you should be acting towards yourself as well. And nobody is perfect. Like, everyone struggles with something, and and people, you know, they find different ways to handle it themselves. Mm-hmm. But, like, you can't stay being harsh on yourself. And that's something, like, I feel like everyone needs to learn at some point in their life. You just can't be so negative.
And that's actually such a good point that we brought up, because I actually did that to Deja today.
Yeah.
You know, Deja got something back that she did not like and did not enjoy, and, you know, she was kind of tearing herself down about it, you know, a little bit, and I was like, hey, like, it's okay, this was your first one, like, you're gonna learn from it, you're gonna grow. Yeah,
going back from, like, the failure aspect, like, once one thing fails and then, like, everything else starts falling, you feel like a failure, and I hate that feeling more than anything in the world. I hate when I don't have control of what's happening, and then I don't, like, I lose control of everything, and so it all just goes down, and I cannot stand that, and I can't stand feeling like, you know, like, looking around me and being like, okay, well, you know, I bombed that, okay, well, that's going on, okay, well, I'm stressed out about this. It becomes so overwhelming, and then it's so much on you and your mental state as well. And so, like, my calc test, for example, I studied, despite everything, I studied as much as I could at that moment, and, you know, my head was in the right place, there was a lot of things going on, and, you know, I didn't do too good. I saw that test, and I walked out. I didn't even look my professor in the eyes, because I knew it was bad. I was like, you know, like, you can talk about a rough day. Like, that was a really rough day. And, like, I got my grade back today.
Right after our Sea Turtle adventure.
Lowest grade in the class. But, you know, you look back at that now and you're just like, okay, well, like, what did we learn from this?
Right.
You have to take your challenges and you have to learn from them, instead of constantly being like, well, you know, I have the lowest test score, I just suck, I had a bad day. You have to look at it and be like, okay, now how do I improve this? What did I learn from this? What should I do better next time so that I can get a better score?
Yeah, and I mean, I like to think of it this way, okay? If you were put in a situation like that, where, you know, you didn't do too good on a test, there is truly no failure. And I know we all think, yes, there's failure, because if you get an A, that's passing, and if you get an F, that's failure. Mm-hmm. But realistically, you need to look at, what are you taking out of that experience? What are you taking out of, you know, that test, okay? Are you going to learn from it? Because at the end of the day, if you learned that, okay, maybe my study method that I was doing for this class wasn't quite effective. Maybe I do need to go to study group, or maybe I need to go do something.
Maybe I need to do more homework.
Exactly. That is learning from it, and that is, you know, gaining experience and knowledge. And so, in my opinion, that is not failure. Now, if she were to go from the test and be like, well, oh well, I just bombed it, like, it's fine, whatever, I'm not going to do anything differently, I'm not going to change anything, yeah, that's a failure, because you're not learning, you're not improving.
You're not doing anything you can to improve yourself from there. You need to at least show some type of improvement. Mm-hmm. If you just look at the situation you're in and you're like, well, my life is hard, and, you know, my situation's tough, you're not gonna grow from that. Like, you have to go, and you need to take initiative, and you need to realize what you don't want in your life, and you need to do everything you can to improve it off of that.
Mm-hmm. So, like Deja mentioned, and we're talking a lot about school because it's a new semester.
It's new semester, new classes.
Like Deja mentioned, I am taking Spanish currently, okay, and I am versed in English and French, and my French isn't even that great, but I know French. And so I am learning Spanish right now because I need a college level foreign language credit or whatever to transfer into the degree category that I want. And they don't offer French, so I was like, okay, well, I'm either going to have to take Spanish or ASL. So I decided to take Spanish because that's, you know, that's something that's very, I'm so sorry guys, I'm moving the mic.
I know.
But that is something that is very useful in life. It's very useful to have that. But I went into that class feeling terrified because I don't know one person in that class. And I'm so intimidated by the language because I've never done it before. And, you know, like we said, we like being perfect. And so I walked into that class and I was so terrified. And, you know, the teacher, she called on me, I think the second day, and she asked me a question. And I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue.
You know how in class, like, they ask you a question and you're like, don't ask me that, I don't know the question, I don't know the answer to that, and then they immediately choose you and you're like...
Well, what's sad is she had just said the answer, and I was like mouthing it because I was trying to get it in my brain, and then she called on me and she's like, okay, it looks like, you know, you need, like, why don't we review it again? And so she had just said the answer and I still couldn't remember. And I just blanked, okay? And so, you know, in that moment, I could have chosen to curl up in a ball, not realistically, but like I could have chosen to feel super embarrassed about myself. I could have felt really awful because I didn't know what it was. I didn't, you know how to answer it, whereas the rest of the people in my class might have. But instead, I chose to just take it in stride, and I was like, you know what? It's a new language. It's something completely new that I'm learning. And you have to give yourself grace with that. Mm-hmm. So in my, you know, while I might not have gotten the right answer, and I might not have known what she was talking about, I learned something from that because I took something out of it. And so in my opinion, that was not a failure.
No, nothing is failure,
unless you make it a failure.
If you literally don't try, that you're failing. There's no point in even trying at that point. You didn't put any effort in, you didn't do anything. But if it's like even just a small improvement, like Madeline says it all the time, like just 1% change in you every single day, it's gonna lead up, and you know, you're just gonna build you a better person. Not, you know, you're not gonna get the results immediately, but over time you will start to develop like new things and everything.
Right. Think how many days are in a year. What, 375?
It was 365.
Oh, 365, whatever.
It's an old.
Whatever. See, I learned from that. Okay, that was not a failure. So sorry if you were wearing headphones. I got really close to the mic. But yeah, so there's 365 days in a year. Okay, so if you improve 1% every day, and I'm so sorry, if you listen to every episode, you know, I say this pretty much every episode because it's so it shifted my perspective. You will be 365% better by the end of it. And that's what's important. You just have to improve a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No one's expecting you to be a completely different person in the span of today. Like, I'm not expecting myself to be like, okay, well, I failed this class, I failed this test, I'm just going to go and study the whole entire textbook, watch 80 gazillion videos, and then by, you know, the next class I'll know every single thing.
Exactly. That's not realistic. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. Even if we wanted to, I know.
We all wish, but... And, like, overall, it is so important to be kind to yourself and just think of the conditions you were in. Like, everyone has a bad day. I know I had a bad day, but, like, you just have to look at it and you have to, like, you still have to be kind to yourself.
Right.
I was upset about my calculus class, but, like, looking back at it, like, reflecting on it, it's a 50-minute class. I had 8 days worth of new material. You know, I wasn't in the best mindset. And I'm taking a Calc 2 class as a freshman in college. Not many people even go up to Calc 2. That's something.
I did.
That's something my dad mentions all the time. Every time I talk about that darn math class, he's always like, you know, you can't be hard on yourself. Like, you're taking a very hard class. Like, you know, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to, you know.
And I mean, everybody has their own strengths and their weaknesses. Like, you know, math is your strength, but that's my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Learning languages is... hopefully, eventually, my, like, really good strength. And, you know, that's other people, that's their weakness. So you really just have to take it in stride and understand that, you know, everybody's different. Everybody is struggling in their own way. And you just have to focus on yourself and be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Even, like, friendships with other people. Like, if Madeline and I got into this bad argument because I was aggravated, you know, I'm gonna look back at that and just be like, be kind to yourself. You know, it wasn't.
Let's not put that in the air.
Right? Like, it wasn't meant to be anything harmful. It was just like, you know, you had stuff on your mind and you just overflowed it.
Yeah. So just remember, be kind to yourself, and failure is not truly failure if you learn from it. Mm-hmm. But I think that is all I have on this topic. Anything else you can do? Alright, so we you know, we have a bunch of different social media pages that you can go.
We're on
and
YouTube.
look at.
We're on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok.
Hopefully,
before
if it's a
TikTok, and yeah, and it's all at the Elegance Exchange.
Yes, super simple, super easy. And we honestly, we post some really funny stuff on there. Well, okay, we think it's funny because we're the ones that make it, but other people I don't know, other people might be like, oh, they're weird, but whatever, who cares? So if you like our personalities and want to see more of us, definitely go tune in on there, because I post on Instagram 5 days a week. So
and I'm always on TikTok. I see and read every comment.
Yes, we love getting comments. We really do. So yeah, all right. We love you, babes. Bye.